Welcome to the Rise in Society podcast. I'm Shane Kennedy.
I'm Nico Galliano, the rejected gentleman.
And we've been on a brief hiatus for the past couple of weeks, but we are back.
Took a little break, yeah.
And we're back to celebrate Independence Day, to celebrate the 4th of July, a few days late. That's the reason that I'm wearing red, white, and blue checkered shirt here.
Nice.
To celebrate, and you're wearing red and black. And
I look like a communist.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, a communist or some kind of a badist.
Yeah, there you go.
You know, so, all right, so what's been going on?
Not much, man. Had a beautiful 4th of July. Like you said, good Independence Day. But this is the first time in a long time, I don't think it felt like the 4th of July. You know what I mean? Oh, you forgot to swipe those bad boys off.
Finally took them off.
Yeah, there you go. Very cool. I don't know. Something was different about it. Did it feel off to you? Just like...
It didn't really feel all that off to me.
No, really? Mm-mm. I just felt like this is the first time where it just felt like weak as a 4th of July. I don't know, man.
We're in a really weird place in America right now. You know, we're dancing on the edge of nuclear war with Russia. You know, and it's not like it's not like some little weak dance. You know, this is a really, really intense one, like the waltz. You know, we're really in it, like dancing on the edge of nuclear war, and then there's all the culture war stuff that's happening, like the alphabet stuff.
Yeah,
you know, that's happening. You know, kids and everything. You know, so we're just in a really, really weird place. You know, America. I don't know. It just seems like it's like a war of all against all.
Yeah, I'm with you, dude. It's like for the first time, and I'm not a doom and gloom guy, but it's like the first time there's like not a lot to celebrate, it seems, like on a national level. Like there's no unification on like great victories. Like what have we done lately where we're like, fuck yeah, man, that was awesome. I'm glad we did that. You know what I mean? It's just and I'm talking any country around the world. There hasn't been a lot. It's just been like negative. I don't know.
Well, you know, in many ways, I think so. This actually kind of brings us into kind of talking a little bit about freedom, about the 4th of July, and what it all means. You know, I think a lot of people think that just because America has a really, really good Constitution, that America has a really, really good founding story, you know, where we broke away from the tyrannical British, you know, that wicked tyrant, King George III.
Yeah.
That made our system somehow perfect. Well, the thing that we cannot forget, that the thing that made our system function so well for so long was that we were all unified under the kingship of Jesus Christ. You know, and the thing is, whether people were one Christian denomination or another, you know, whether they were Catholic or Protestant in America, ministers would deliver what were called election day sermons. You know, especially in the early 1800s. And a lot of people don't realize this. For instance, the state of Connecticut had a state church. And I think it was the Baptist Church was the state church of the state of Connecticut up until like 1820. And I think it was New Hampshire that had the Episcopal Church. You know, the whole reason I bring all that stuff up is that we talk today all about, you know, trying to root religion out of American culture and out of the American experience. What I would argue is that the Christian faith has been integral to the American experience, and that since we began the process in the early 20th century of rooting religion out of America, America has begun to fall apart. You know, families are collapsing, our culture sucks. You know, I don't know if you've listened to a whole lot of new music lately, not all that good.
No, it's not. And actually, you bring up a good point right there, because you were talking about like America's history, right? In these time periods where we had certain mass influx of people throughout American history, right? Either through, you know, the slave trade or the migration of the Irish to the Italians and the Germans, you know what I mean? Different time periods in history, right? The difference is everyone always uses the argument that, well, America has, you know, it's a melting pot. It's a melting pot. It's a melting pot. It's a melting pot. And I kind of hate that analogy because if you look at any time period, this is the first time where I think you don't have cultures. When cultures used to come over, like I always hear the story about my grandparents when they came. I'm sorry, my great-grandparents when they came from Sicily and another part came from Italy. When they came over, if they went outside of the household, they didn't speak Italian. You know what I mean? And I feel like people used to assimilate into what American culture was. And everyone's like, well, we don't have a national language. We don't have a national religion. We don't have all this stuff. Yeah, we always have, though, historically. And I feel like people used to want it to be Americans and what that meant. And now we've kind of lost an identity, so we don't really know what it means to be Americans. Because we were built on rebellion. We were supposed to, like, question our government. We were supposed to have those freedoms to throw up double deuces. And I feel like that we've lost that kind of. Now everyone brings their culture with them, which culture differences is beautiful, and it can be. But there's no assimilation into, like, one identity. So what is an American? You know what I mean? But there's not one, like, definition of it. People go, well, it's a mixing pot. Well, that doesn't work. We've seen that in different countries over time periods, all the way from the ancient time, when the Romans, when the mass influx of people. When you lose that cultural identity that makes you so similar, I think it leads to erosion, and then it leads to the question, well, who are we as a people now? Because you have to have one commonality, you know what I mean? And we don't. We just have a word, American. What does that mean?
Well, and you know, the thing is, I think it's really important to recognize that America was born out of a different type of revolution than what what the Republic of France was born out of. You know, in the American Revolution, the founding fathers, they largely viewed themselves as being good Englishmen and as standing up for their rights as Englishmen. You know, if you go back and you look at what their main beef was with the tyrant King George III, was that they were being taxed without being represented in the English Parliament. You know, and what they were saying was, this is a gross violation of what our rights are as Englishmen. You know, it was a violation of the Magna Carta. It was a violation of everything, of all the rights that had been bestowed upon the English localities and the English people. You know, so they very much viewed themselves as standing up against King George III, who was violating their rights as Englishmen. You know, that's opposed to the French Revolution, where the French rose up. It was largely the bourgeois class, which is what we would call like the middle class. A lot of them had become atheists or had also become deists. There was a theological heresy in France that was big called Jansenism at the time, and essentially what it taught was that there was this very, very distant angry God, you know, no mercy, and a lot of them ended up, and so you ended up having this very this sentiment in France, and I think in France what you ended up seeing was a projection of that anger and distance that people felt toward God because of bad heresy, bad theology. They projected that onto the king. And you know, in France, it's really interesting that we oftentimes think of the French monarchy as being very, very absolute, like the czars or like a dictator. That's actually not the way that the French system operated.
No.
They were, you know, it was a very, very localist system, but what ended up happening was people got stirred up, and it was really a very Parisian thing. People got stirred up, and their whole attitude was, we've got to kill this regime off. We've got to kill the king. We've got to kill the aristocrats. We've got to kill all of them off so we can start off with something brand new. During the French Revolution, the revolutionaries, people like Robespierre, they even tried to reorganize they tried to eliminate the 7-day week and create a brand new week.
Well, that's just the thing. You're 100% right with the French, because the French were one of the few, like you said, that they would usually love the new regime when it came in, because they're the ones that kind of put them in power. And then, over time, they would become evil, and they were just like, okay.
They would either overthrow the new regime or they would get killed by the new regime.
Yeah, and they'd be like, okay, time to... Yeah, it was like it was weird because it was never really initially forced upon them. They kind of like picked who that was going to be, right? Mm-hmm. They were, like you said, they were just dropping like left and right with those regimes.
Well, and that's the thing with the American Revolution. It was purely political. Mm-hmm. We were looking to overthrow what our founders argued was a tyrannical king over in England, and they were just looking to reorganize the way that the colonies at that time were governed, to be self-governed, which was a very English principle. But they were not looking to throw out customs and start something brand new. They were not looking to throw out their religion and start something brand new. They were not looking to cast aside their culture and start something brand new, like what those French revolutionaries were trying to do.
They held on to their culture so much that the majority of North America didn't even want to leave, right? They wanted to stay loyal to the crown.
So you hear arguments on both sides. So from what I understand, the loyalists at some point during the Revolutionary War, they ended up fleeing to Canada.
Oh, they're gone. They're Canadians.
Well, and think about it, Nico.
That makes sense.
The Canadians are some of the biggest pushovers in North America, and that's because they're descended from some of the biggest pushovers of the time.
Okay. I had another word for them, but yeah, we'll go
pushovers. Pushover.
Pushover, yeah.
It's probably a word
that makes so much sense.
Starts with the same letter, right?
On why Canadians are the way they are. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. A little direct descendants from just loyalists to the crown. Yeah, pushovers.
Yep.
That makes sense.
That's why the only ones in Canada that are not pushovers are the French speakers that live in Quebec. Mm-hmm. And throughout their history, they've tried to break away from the Canadian government, but they haven't been allowed to.
Dude, and I'm not good on like Canadian history at all.
I don't know a whole lot about it. I know that there's a lot. I think there's a lot involving like moose or meese. Uh-huh. How do you refer to a moose in the plural?
Moose? You said meese?
Yeah. Do you call them moose or meese, or do you call them mooses?
No, it's definitely not. Okay, there's that moose, and there's those
meese.
That's a lot. Those,
or do you say those mooses? Or,
dude, I'm still the guy that thinks cacti is bullshit. Those are cactuses, buddy. I don't care what anyone says. You sound like a crazy person when you say that. Look at my garden of cacti. You just sound like an asshole. Those are cactuses.
Well,
I don't like a lot of the plural things.
So instead of saying cacti, or instead of saying cactuses, you could say, "Look at this cornucopia of cactus." Or look.
I'd rather say cacti. That was horrible.
Or you could say, "Come and meet my family, or my cactus family." Right here.
Oh, speaking of this exact pluralization thing, before we get too far off topic, I learned something funny enough on TikTok from who's the black Stephen Hawking, the one with the mustache.
Oh,
and he wears like the ties.
Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Yeah, Neil deGrasse Tyson. So he was talking, and he said he was talking to Joe Rogan, I think, and he was like, yeah, and that's what happens. All the fishes in the sea would die. Why are you looking at me like that?
What would cause them to die? The cactus?
No, I don't remember the context of the thing, but he goes, all the fishes. I'm sorry.
Oh.
All the fishes, right? And he goes, oh, it's just fish. Hey, that's what Joe Rogan said to him. And he goes, no, it's fishes. And he goes, no, it's not fishes, because it's already, what do you call it? It would already be a plural, all the fish.
Oh, fish.
Uh-huh.
So it's the same word that refers to one fish versus plural.
And he goes, that's not true, because when you have one type of species, then it is. But when you have multiple different species that are all the same, so instance, a shark and, give me something else, a tuna, right, when they're swimming, or a tuna and something else, a sea bass, when they're swimming, right? They're both fish, but there's more than one of them in one area. So it's fishes.
That's interesting.
It's called a double plural. How weird is that? Because they're both fish, right? But they're different. They're not the same. So it's fishes. It plurals out. But if they were all the same, let's say it was just 3 tuna swimming together, those fish.
So if you're talking about the Seuss book, one fish, two fish, red fish, blue fish, if they're multiple fish that are like the same
Fishes.
like the same color or something, then it would be
Fishes.
fish. Like if you're talking about 4 red fish,
Fish.
then you would just say, "Oh, look at the red fish over there."
Yes.
Not red fishes.
Not fishes.
But if you're pointing at red fish and blue fish and there's multiple of them, then you would say, "Look at those fishes."
I don't know if the color necessarily matters, but if they're not the same species of fish.
Well, if you're dealing with a red fish and you're dealing with, let's say, a blue fish, they're clearly different species, especially in the Seuss world.
Well, I don't know if that's true because like betas are different colors.
Have you ever read that book, the Dr. Seuss book?
Yes, I've read Dr. Seuss, man. Dude, holy shit, we rabbit trailed somewhere. I don't remember what we were talking about.
Well, we were talking about moose.
No, I don't think we were.
Oh, Canada.
Canadians.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
And how they're pushovers.
Yeah, they're big pansies, dude.
Yeah.
Don't like them. Wait, I don't know if we can say that. I do like Canadians.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't like
So,
the
all right,
political.
this is my main criticism of Canada. Okay, their bacon, it's ham.
It is not good.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, it's like Canadian bacon. It's actually ham, but it's like a worse version of ham.
It's like if ham wasn't good.
Right.
Yes.
And that's the thing. That's the thing I don't understand about it.
Yeah.
So in Canada, do they call real bacon? Do they call that American bacon?
That's a good question.
And if they do, technically, wouldn't Canadians be Americans because they live in North America?
Oh, wow.
And if that's the case, then what do they call U.S. citizens? Have you ever thought about that?
South Americans. No, they just call us North Americans.
Well, that would include them too, right?
No, because
And that would include Mexicans
it's like Game
and
of
Guatemalans.
Thrones. They're like wildlings. They're beyond the wall.
I don't even know what a wildling is.
Oh, you don't know Game of Thrones is referenced.
Is a wildling like a Canadian, sort of?
Kind of.
Okay.
Like uncultured, barbaric weirdos.
Are they pushovers?
No, dude, the Vikings are badass.
Oh.
Or Vikings. The
So
wildlings are badass.
So maybe it's the Quebecois.
If all of the
natives of
wildlings were
Quebec.
French, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, the French because the French Canadians are not pushovers, but just as much as the French Canadians are not pushovers, the English speaking Canadians are for the most part pushovers. I love I do love Canadians.
Love Canada, yeah.
Yeah.
And you know what's funny? The French Canadians aren't pushovers, but the French are.
Yes. well, you know, the thing is, it's sort of like how all the pushover loyalists from the 13 colonies, not all of them, but a lot of them fled to Canada. Mm-hmm. Well, it's like a lot of like the really, really bold Frenchmen, they fled Canada to go to Quebec.
Dude, I like how it's like 4th of July, so you and I just naturally, like, we're going to talk shit about all these other countries.
No. We're not talking shit.
Oh, facts.
We're speaking facts here.
Yeah, truths. Truthisms.
Yep.
I think is what we're going for.
Yeah. And so I do think it is very important, though, to distinguish between, because a lot of the time people lump the American Revolution and the French Revolution together, and the two are they're totally different things.
Same.
They're totally different. So why don't we move on to talk about something that is pretty wild that's been going on apparently for a few months.
What's that?
So you know, I'm not very well versed in pop culture. You know, I'll be the first one to admit that.
No, you are not good at it.
But one thing that I was made aware of a few weeks ago is apparently Taylor Swift is
T Swift.
Yeah, T Swift, Taylor Swift, or TS for short, I guess.
No, the T Swift, man.
Oh, T Swift. Okay,
she's like a gangster.
She's apparently touring the country. It's the Eras tour is what she's doing.
Dude, and yes, people do like anything for it.
Well, so apparently there's a phenomenon going on where people go to the Taylor Swift concert, like big time Taylor Swift fans. They go
Swifties.
to Swifties. They go to the concert, and then at the end of the concert, they have no memory of it.
What?
So they call it Taylor Swift amnesia, where they go to the concert.
Okay.
What they remember is going to the concert. They remember getting in their seat.
Like they're so happy they just fucking
and then
Men in Black.
Well, and then the next thing they remember, like there's no concert.
The concert's over.
Yeah.
So wait, let me get this straight so I can keep up with this because maybe I'm not as good at pop culture either. So someone drops 800 bones on a ticket to go see a very overrated. I'm being biased. Someone drops $800 on a ticket to go see the person they just freaking love more than anyone. Mm-hmm. They sit down. She walks out on stage. She belts the first chord. They blink and the concert's over.
They don't even remember her coming out on stage.
Oh boy.
And
Wait. Are they saying that she's doing this like it's her fault?
Well, what there so there are a lot of theories to this, but so like the most feel good light, very very soft theory about this is that
they're super happy.
Yeah, that they're just like they're working themselves up into like an ecstasy, and
so
then
they like
and then they just
faint?
black out. Yeah. And then like the worst case theory about it is that it's some kind of like a psyop where Taylor Swift is doing like occult rituals and stuff like that in the concert.
Why would she do that?
She might
Why
be a
would
witch.
she not want you to remember?
Well, she might be a witch. I have no idea.
She's a witch?
Well, that's the theory. And
like
the
Stevie Nicks kind of witch, or like Salem witch?
what's the Stevie Nicks witch reference?
They say Stevie Nicks is a witch, the White Witch.
Oh,
how do you not? You don't know pop culture. You don't know any culture.
Well, listen. She probably is a witch. I have no idea.
Dude, you listen to classic rock. How do you? She's the White Witch.
She sang for Steve Winwood. No, for the Steve Miller Band or the what band was it that she sang for?
Fleetwood Mac.
Fleetwood Mac. That's right. And people.
Steve Miller Band.
Listen, in my mind, they're all kind of in the same category. But people say that Stevie Nicks is a witch.
She's called the White Witch.
Well, you know what? That would not surprise me because that whole little syndicate from Hollywood, Laurel Canyon, look it up. There is a lot of occult stuff that a lot of Hollywood folks and,
it's not
and entertaining folks
it's just orgies
are involved in
cocaine.
And there's a bunch of satanic stuff too.
You think so, dude?
They don't have to listen. If they were just going around just doing a bunch of drugs and just living a debauched life,
like pedophiles, and shit.
then they wouldn't be dedicating their lives to Aleister Crowley and stuff.
Mr. Crowley.
Yeah.
Dun,
Yep.
dun, dun,
So
dun, dun.
yeah, so the thing is, if all that it was that they were just like in like a permanent spring break or something, like a permanent spring break mentality.
That's a great analogy.
They would not be dedicating their lives and singing about Aleister Crowley.
That is a good point.
So who knows? So like I said, I'll reemphasize it. Best case scenario, Taylor Swift, the Swifties are just getting worked up and just excited, and then they just have memory loss, and it's happening to like all of them at the concert. Or worst case scenario,
doesn't seem practical. That one,
right? Or worst case scenario, it's some kind of a psyop or an occult ritual. So me being the very or the very kind of like middle of the road moderate guy that I am, I figure it's probably somewhere in the middle.
Dude, do you think like it's only happening to some people though, Shane? Thousands of people go to those concerts, and how many are losing their fucking memory?
Well, thousands are going to these concerts, and thousands of people are not remembering shit about the concert.
There's no way, dude. There's not on droves like that. She's just going out there, and she's just like putting on sunglasses, like, why? So they come back. They're like, I gotta go again. I don't remember it.
No, they're like, what the hell just happened?
That's petrifying.
Well,
And I got to be honest, if somehow I got a free ticket and I was dragged to a Taylor Swift concert, that would be the best thing that could happen. It's that I blink and it was over.
Dude, listen. If I got a free ticket for a Taylor Swift concert, I'm selling that thing.
Dude, I don't know. If some girl managed to drag me to a T Swift concert, I would be okay with being like, oh, good, we're leaving.
Dude, she she wouldn't remember it anyway.
No, we wouldn't even have to talk about it because we wouldn't fucking know. I could just forget it happened.
Well, the real problem I think would be if during the concert you took video and you took pictures and stuff of it, you go back and you look at the videos or pictures and you're like, damn, what just happened?
Dude, what if you
just black out in that moment? You're like, whoa, what's going on here?
Dude, if someone didn't break your concentration, you'd just be looking at your phone forever. just keep.
Yeah. You're just sitting there you're just like, what's going on here?
It's fucking wild. All right, so the Taylor Swift Amnesia. I haven't heard that one.
Yeah, so it's interesting, and Google it. I mean, there's a lot of stuff out there about it. There are video clips from a bunch of entertainment news sites. There are a bunch of video clips from local news channels.
Well, she's about to go on a world tour. I think she just wrapped up North America. She's about to go on a world tour. Let's see. We'll follow this story.
I wonder if she's going to the Ukraine.
She needs to go to the Ukraine, dude.
Yeah.
Make them forget all that crazy shit. We'll follow up with this story. That's what we're going to do.
Clip it.
Don't take my thing.
All right. Well, so Nico, before we started this conversation, I brought up France to you. I asked you if over the past couple of weeks you'd been following what's been happening in France. Well, I guess it's really only been the last week.
I don't follow anything French.
Well, yeah, and you said, when I asked you that question, you looked like you had just left a Taylor Swift concert. I mean, you looked at me like,
dude, can that be like, how we had the clip it thing? Mm-hmm. Can we also, anytime someone blinks out or loses, like, we go down a rabbit hole, can we just look at the other person and be like, dude, you're T-Swifting?
Yeah.
Let's make that, coin that.
You've been Swifted.
Dude, like a sweeper Swifter, too. Like, it just clears everything. You've been Swifted.
Yeah, it's like,
that's it. Clip that so we can
clip
coin
it.
So we can coin that. Okay, got it.
So in France, they had France is actually engulfed right now in riots. Riots and buildings are being burned. People are being injured, and stores are being ransacked.
What is it for energy crisis?
No. So the whole thing that sparked it is all right. So actually, let's back up for a minute. France has a very, very large unassimilated immigrant population.
Yeah, all of them. Germany, France, all of them.
But France in particular has a really, really big population of like
Syrians.
Well, they've got Syrians, but France actually they've got a lot of Algerians. They have a lot of Moroccans.
Oh, that makes sense.
It's a lot of North Africans, and a lot of them are unassimilated, and they had what is called what a lot of news in France have coined their George Floyd moment. So there was a so it may not be exactly like George Floyd. But you had an Algerian national. I think he was like 20 or something. I wrote his name down. I'm probably going to butcher it whenever I pronounce it. It's Nahel Merzouk, I think is his name. like Nazel Merzouk, I think is his name. It's
100% chance that's not correct.
So his first name it's spelled Nahel, and then his last name is spelled Merzouk.
Nahel Merzouk.
Okay, so we'll just call him N or Nahel.
Nahel Merzouk. Yep.
So what happened to him was he was apparently speeding in a car. He ended up running a red light. He got pulled over, and the cops asked him to turn the car off.
Okay.
And he started driving away. So the cops had already drawn their guns, and when he started driving away, the cops shot him, and unfortunately they killed him. So as a result of that, the entire country has been engulfed in that unassimilated. These riots have largely been driven by that unassimilated group of largely Islamic, North African nationals, like Algerians, Moroccans. Some Syrians are involved in this. Probably some Iranians. It looks like it's largely. I don't think it's limited to, but it looks like it's largely unassimilated Islamic migrants to France.
Gotcha.
Which make up about 10% of the French population.
10%?
Well, so Islam makes up about 10% of the French population. So maybe 5% of that are the unassimilated, like first generation young men that have come into France over the past couple of decades or so. So you have them, they're rioting all over the country. On top of that, Emmanuel Macron, the president of France, he's been very unpopular among the working class French citizens because he bumped up their retirement age without consulting them and without consulting the French National Assembly, their equivalent of our Congress. And Macron has done a lot of things.
How does that work? How can he do that?
Well, exactly the point. That's the thing that has them really, really pissed off.
What do you bump it up to?
From 62 for full retirement to 65 or 66.
Dude, the French would fucking hate America.
Yeah.
They're going through everything we did.
So then on top of that, he also passed a bunch of policies about a year ago or so. Do you remember the Yellow Vest protests in France? They happened about a year ago.
No.
It was a bunch of French citizens that were very upset because Emmanuel Macron's policies, largely involving energy and the environment, it caused electricity and it caused gasoline the prices to become significantly more expensive for your average Frenchman.
Dude,
and it really it upset them immensely.
So France is just America, like if France was like Internet Explorer. They're just behind us by a couple years. All this shit's been happening to us.
Well, so the thing is, and then the French, they had their presidential election. I don't know, like 6 months ago or something.
Let me guess, it was stolen.
No. Actually, the French have very, very strict election rules.
Oh wow. Okay.
When you show up to a French poll to vote, the French do not do mail-in voting. And the French generally do not do early voting. If you're going to vote in a French election, you go, and they have very, very high turnout rates in France too. If you're going to vote in a French election, you have to show up to the precinct on election day. And if that's inconvenient, then too bad, so sad. You have to show up to the precinct on election day, and you have to present a photo ID, and then they have members of the major political parties there to look at your photo ID to make sure that you are who you say you are. And so when France takes elections very, very seriously, they take them a lot more seriously than we do in America. And so they had the choice between Emmanuel Macron to reelect him, a man who royally screwed the country up, or Marine Le Pen.
Who's Marine Le Pen?
So Marine Le Pen, she is a more conservative right wing, or she was a more conservative right wing candidate. She's currently in the French Assembly, in the French equivalent of Congress, and she is not happy at all. And her constituents are not happy at all with what Emmanuel Macron has done with leaving the open door for this unregulated, unmitigated migrant crisis of migrants pouring into France. And these are not families; these are largely young men, young military-aged men, and this has caused a major problem. And what's happening in France right now, these riots and everything, of these unassimilated young foreign men going and burning buildings down and going up and assaulting French citizens. This is exactly what Marine Le Pen and her followers have predicted would happen at some point. And so at this point, I read an article a couple of days ago that that the police and the heads of the military have sent a letter to Emmanuel Macron, and they've said, if you can't get this stuff straightened out, then we will intervene and sidestep you. So the French are on the brink. The French could end up having a revolution. And it's no joke. Emmanuel Macron, and you know, you may be wondering to yourself, I wonder why we're not hearing a whole lot about this anymore. Or I wonder why we're not hearing a whole lot about this. Well, the American media is uninterested in this, and it doesn't go along with their narrative, so they're not reporting on it.
Yeah, no, that doesn't fit.
And Emmanuel Macron, he flipped the dead man switch on the social media in France. He has blocked French citizens from using social media. He put that in place like 3 days ago.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And
he's probably
this is
using
no
it as
joke.
a national security thing, saying that's how they're organizing and making these riots and all that stuff, right?
Yep.
Of course. Yeah, that's the first thing they do.
Yep. Mm-hmm. So it's going to be really interesting. It's going to be scary to see how this whole thing in France ends up playing out. I certainly hope that things end up calming down over there, but I would actually love it if Emmanuel Macron were to step down. I think he has a duty and responsibility to his country and to the rest of the world to step down and probably leave the country.
Damn.
You know? And I would love to see Marine Le Pen become president of France.
She's badass, huh?
She is. You know, she's a badass, and then Giorgio Meloni down in Italy is a badass too.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, and you could have those two badass women in Europe actually straightening things out. Mm-hmm. So it would be a beautiful thing. So I just filled you in. So what do you think about that? About
That's crazy, man. I do like how and I know I was making jest of it, but I do like how these countries are just going through what America has gone through for the last couple of years, because you get that superiority complex of the Europeans, where I think we Americans glorify them. We've talked about this in past episodes. You know, it's a museum of past glories. Mm-hmm. Well, Americans think like, oh, America's such a shithole. There's all these other countries. Well, it's really nice to see that at a 10%, a 10% population difference, these countries fucking crumble. Absolutely crumble.
Well, and you know that's the problem of having a large population of people that are unassimilated.
Exactly.
You know?
But we have that in America at much higher levels, and people are like, oh, no. You know, it's not the same. America's a shithole. These other countries do great with all their social programs and all this stuff. But they can't point to one. And any time that we let history play out, because this will happen in Germany, this exact same scenario is going to happen in Germany. It's going to happen in all of the countries that take a mass exit. We're watching it happen in England little by little by little.
Yeah.
It's the same shit, and it's going to happen. Because when you have unassimilated people that aren't buying into the ideals of what made your country, there's only one thing that can happen. There has to be a clash, and one side is going to become, victorious.
Yep.
That's how it always plays out. This isn't opinion. This is fact. So I'm very interested to see how that plays out, and I do hope it's resolved peacefully. And I agree with you. I don't know who the Le Pen lady is, but if you like her, I'm on board.
Well, I do want to point out one thing, that the nature of the unmitigated pouring in of migrants into the United States, just it is different. Just the nature of the people that are sneaking into the United States, or not sneaking in, that are pouring in across the southern border. There are a lot of young military-aged men that are pouring into the United States, but there are also a lot of families that are pouring in across the border into the United States. And to me, those people are not the problem. Those people are not the issue. But in Europe, it's not families that are pouring into Europe. Europe, this immigration thing, it's going to end up boding over much worse in Europe than our immigration crisis is going to end up boding over here. Mm-hmm. You know, it's going to be tough. It's going to be very, very tough for us here. Mm-hmm. Don't get me wrong, but the possible negative outcomes of like social unrest and stuff, I think Europe is going to be facing a major crisis.
Oh, I do too.
But in the United States, we're going to see more of a strain on our social system, like our social safety nets and stuff, like our food stamp system and the education system and stuff like that. We can handle that and we can manage that as far as like families pouring in and stuff. Now the problem we are seeing a lot of young military aged men that are unaffiliated with anybody pouring across the border, and that is scary here. But in Europe, that's almost all that's coming in.
Yeah.
And the thing is, there was a video that was circulating around on Twitter when all this stuff first started happening in France, and it was a comparison of the riots in France to what an average day is like in Poland. And this is what's interesting. Poland and Hungary, even though they're part of the European Union, they do not allow this unfettered migration of young single military aged men to pour into their country from like Syria and from North Africa and from all these other places. It really doesn't matter where they're coming from. It's that they're young military aged men that are coming there from that are coming there and they're not looking to assimilate into the culture. And France has an open door policy, but Hungary and Poland don't. And Hungary and Poland, they're not dealing with riots. They're not dealing with buildings that are getting burned down and everything. People are getting attacked on subways in Paris and stuff. That stuff's not happening in Poland and Hungary.
No, I agree with you. It's wild, dude.
Yeah, it's crazy. And then here, so the last thing I'd like for us to, the last thing I'd like for us to talk about is something that a whole lot of people don't know a whole lot about. And RFK Jr. has actually started talking about it.
What is it?
So it's called the Smith-Mundt Act. It was passed back in 1945, I think. Kind of like as World War II was winding down in Europe. And just simply put, and what I would recommend people do is Google it. The Smith-Mundt Act. Mundt Act. It's spelled SMITH-MUNDT Act. Okay. And what the act did was it said that the U.S. State Department and agencies like the CIA and stuff that they could propagandize foreign populations. Like for instance, let's say that our State Department wanted to interfere in an election overseas. They wanted to spread a bunch of propaganda that would support the candidate that the U.S. State Department wanted to win the election. Then they have free reign to do that. They could go over and they actually did that quite a bit in post World War II Europe. There were Italian elections that the U.S. intelligence agencies interfered in. Mm-hmm. There were a lot of elections. The German elections were kind of a joke in that time period. The U.S. State Department would just pick whoever they wanted
and just set up there. Because
if there is one lesson that we learned during the 20th century is Germans are not very very good at voting.
No,
so
they don't have a good track record.
Right? Yeah. Hey, I agree with that wholeheartly. But we interfered in French elections. We interfered in a lot of elections in post World War II Europe. And the Russians tried to, but the Russians have never been good at that kind of stuff.
At propaganda.
Yeah, it's just like it's never been their forte. But it's just funny that our State Department, who are the masters of propaganda, they always accuse the Russians. They're always like, "Oh, the Russians are masters of propaganda." Bullshit.
No, dude, we're the masters.
Yeah, we interfered in the Russian elections back in the 90s.
Dude, we've always been better at it than Russia. Russia's like, "Hey, we made the space." You're like, "Oh, you made the space? We went to the moon, motherfucker."
Yeah. Or did we? But
don't know.
Yeah, but
don't know.
It's just my favorite thing is the Russians will be like, you see, Russia greatest country in the world because Russia is great. Yeah, like that. That's Russian style propaganda.
Yeah.
But dude, the American propaganda, it is so subtle. And so convincing because we have like the people that invented modern advertising, like on Madison Avenue in New York City, we
have the Mad Men guys.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and like in fact, another person to look up is Edward Bernays. He was the nephew of Sigmund Freud, and he was the one that actually created the entire ad agency concept in New York City. And he used his uncle's psychological tactics to develop advertising and marketing campaigns.
Yeah.
Like the cigarette, he hijacked the women's liberation movement to sell cigarettes and to make cigarettes popular.
That's badass.
Yeah. So the thing is, that is something that the Russians have never been good at. But America, we are absolute masters at it. So that's the Smith-Mundt Act, which Harry Truman ended up signing into law
in 32.
No, 45. In 1945.
Okay, right after the war.
Yeah.
During the war,
as the war in Europe was coming to a close.
Okay.
Harry Truman signed it into law. I think it was in January. It was either January or March of 1945.
Okay.
And basically what it said was that these tactics of propagandizing people that the United States had become excellent at, especially at the close of World War II.
Can't do it here.
Yeah, like, the word psyop means psychological operation. And we had become very, very good at conducting psychological operations, at convincing populations of certain things, kind of like getting into their head and persuading them to believe something that may not be true, or convincing them to not believe something that is true. So what this act did was it said that the U.S. government could go and propagandize anybody in the world except domestically here in America.
Okay.
They were not allowed to do that. Well, in 2012, under the Obama administration, they passed what was called the Smith-Mundt Modernization Act, and this was in 2012. And what that did was it eliminated the prohibition of the State Department propagandizing domestically here in the country. So what it said was that the State Department can now do what it does overseas.
Here.
It can do it here.
They opened the gates.
Yeah.
Floodgates are open.
Yep. So I think that's very interesting. I think it's something that not a whole lot of people know about. It's certainly something I didn't know about until probably 6 months ago or so.
Yeah.
And I did kind of like a deep dive looking into it. It's sort of like how you and I did a deep dive into plurals of animals or whatever you call that.
Fishes?
Yeah, fishes. Like cactus, cacti, or you could call it family of cactus.
I still don't like it.
Well,
Octopi.
the only thing
Octopuses.
Or you could say, oh, look at this family of octopus, or this octopus family.
Yeah, you can't say, look at this family of octopus.
Yeah,
that's just the same
It
thing.
makes you sound insane whenever you do that.
Yeah, that was just
But it makes you
crazy.
sound sane whenever you say, look at this octopus family.
What if they're not related? What if they're not a family?
Well,
And I don't think they like.
they're all kind of related.
I don't think octopuses just go around hanging out and shit, man. They're pretty solo, aren't they? I'm not an octopi expert.
I'll be honest with you. Those are one of the animals that I do not like.
They're weird, man. Don't they have beaks?
Yeah, they've got like they've got beaks.
Yeah, it's weird, dude.
Yeah, and there are even some octopus that have teeth inside of their suction cups and stuff like.
That's weird to me.
Octopus, I do not like them because they scare me.
Did you say that like a Dr. Seuss book?
Octopuses,
I do not like them.
Yeah, well, listen, I do not like them in a box. I do not like them with a fox. I do not like them, Sam. I am, but then I'm not a fan of cats because they're rude.
Cats?
Yeah, I'm not a fan of cats, not because cats don't scare me. Cats are rude.
Yeah, but cats is normal plural.
No. What I'm saying is the actual animal, cats.
Yeah, they suck. No, I get where you're going.
Yeah,
with that,
I'm not a fan of them. I don't like the way they behave. I don't like their personalities. I think they're rude. They're just plain rude. There's no other word to use. That's the best word is they're rude. And you know what? They're also shady.
They were worshipped by the Egyptians, dude.
Well, how did that turn out for the Egyptians?
Jesus. Fuck. Okay.
I mean, they built the Sphinx.
They have their own.
For them.
They have their own play, dude. Cats, the musical.
That doesn't go in the pro column, man.
Dude,
that goes in the con column.
Have you ever watched it?
I'm very proud to say that I've never watched it. I've never been to the play before. I've never been to the play or musical or whatever you would call it either. And I've never gone to get autographs from them.
Why are you pointing at me?
And also too, I've never participated in it.
Either have I, but I have seen it. Did you not go?
Oh, you're coming out with that now that you did not participate in the Cats musical. You didn't go and get autographs.
No, man. But in elementary school, I feel like every second grade class ever showed Cats, didn't they?
No, not my second grade class.
What?
No.
I am from California.
Oh, dude, they were probably showing that to you guys when you were in like kindergarten, and they were probably like, okay, class, this is what the real world is.
Dude, that's why we have people that are so fucked up. Yeah, it just didn't catch on. They wanted to make us animals.
Yeah, the teacher would probably show up to school that day dressed up as Mr. Mustopheles.
Dude, that's always my favorite thing. Okay, and I know this is off topic, but just speaking of that, right? Like, you know, when you were a kid, like, or like my nieces and nephews, they'd be like, I'm a cat, meow meow, and they'd play like cats, and you're like, hey, that's look at them doing that, right? And it's cute when you see a kid do that, right? Like pretend to be an animal, and you know how like Disney, they're all talking animals. It's cute when you watch a kid. They're like, I'm a dog, right? But if he was 13 and he was doing that at the dinner table, that'd be very strange. You would not enjoy that.
No.
You'd be like, hey, we have company over. Knock that shit off. You're licking off your plate. It's weird. No one likes it.
What if they hissed at the company?
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. No one likes that. That's not okay, but I don't even want to get into the topic. It's just weird to me that we're just like, that delusion's not cool.
No.
But other delusions are just fine. It's weird, man. I don't know. I'm not about it. So, yeah.
People are wild.
It is wild.
Absolutely wild. You know?
It's a weird time to be alive, but you know what? I truly believe the 80s till now will be a very special topic in history. This like 50-year spread to like 2030, how it's going to play out. I think this will be a very unique time period.
People will look back on it and they'll say, "Wow, what a dark age that was."
I think people will look back at it, even with the advances in technology, right? Mm-hmm. Skyrocketing us off. I think that would be the one thing where people are like, "Okay, well, that came out of there," but people are going to look back and go, "What the fuck was going on?"
Well, so Nico, I'll push back on that. I would argue that every piece of technology that we have now was developed by the year 1980. All that we have done is just optimized it. We've just made it more efficient. So think about like the personal computer. The personal computer had been launched in 1980. You know, I mean, it was very expensive. It was in its infancy. And then you also compare that to like early laptops came out in the early 80s. Well, so the internet was out in the early 80s. It was a very, very small thing, but it was out. Cell phones had been invented.
It was created in the 80s.
Right.
That's what I'm saying.
Well, no, the internet was first invented like in the 60s. The first email was sent in like the late 60s, I think, from somewhere. I think it was sent from the UK to like California or something. But so what my point is that look at the time span from like 1950 to 1980. Think about the new inventions that came out in that time period. And then compare 1980 to now. Like I'm talking like new technology that's been developed. Like camcorders existed in the 80s. Mm-hmm. It's just we have far more advanced cameras today, and we've also merged that technology into our phones. Mm-hmm. Cell phones existed back then, but we have seriously upgraded it and made it much more efficient. But we haven't developed anything new, really,
because we're optimizing on all the badass shit, dude.
But I think it says a lot about our culture that we're not creating anything new. We're just taking. It's sort of like how you don't see new movies coming out now. Generally speaking, it's a lot of like remakes. You know, they keep on like relaunching shit. It's because our culture has lost that creative and innovative edge that it used to have.
No, man. Caveman's had fucking wheels. I'm still glad I got a goddamn car to drive around in. No. I hear what you're saying. You're saying no revolutionary things have come out. Fucking bull shit, dude.
Dude, listen, it's the Willy Wonka effect.
It's not the Willy Wonka effect.
Willy Wonka was a brand new movie that came out back in like what, the early 70s, I
get
think.
What you're saying. Our creative juices have come down.
And not just that, but Wonka was based on Charlie and the Chocolate Factory that came out in what, like the 50s or something like that. Like it was a relatively
Are you
new
coining
story.
this Willy Wonka effect? Is this something you made up?
Who am I to coin or not coin something? But I am calling it the Wonka effect.
Okay.
And then what happens now? They remade a shittier version of Willy Wonka with Johnny Depp in it. What, like 10 years ago or 15 years ago or something?
Yeah, okay.
And they're getting ready to remake a shittier version of that one.
I think it's going to be a prequel, but okay.
Well, whatever. It's the same exact thing. It's not original.
I get what you're saying. Our creative juices have really come down.
And the thing is, the exception to the rule today are things that are new and innovative. Like,
dude, they're making digital worlds for people to try to live in. The AI. We didn't have AI on the level we did in the 60s.
Well, so as far as AI goes, again, that's not. Ooh.
What?
I thought that balloon over there was a person.
Okay, man, dude.
But the thing is that AI is so when you get down to AI, it's a bunch of logic gateways that have all been attached together, and it's the culmination of tech that really first came out of World War II. From putting transistors and semiconductors and everything together.
I get what you're saying, man, but this is the first time, dude. In the last 30 years, we took the world's knowledge and put it in our pocket. Nothing's ever been as convenient as right now.
Where is the new technology? Where is the innovation? Where is the creativity?
What are you talking? You took it on the go, man. You took a computer that was the size of this fucking table, but that everyone had. I remember 1996. We got the big ass cow box. You had family computers back then. You didn't have individual computers. You had like a family computer, or maybe it was in the kids' room, but even your dad would come and use it and shit. It was like the computer. It was like clunky. It was huge. Dude, it's in our pocket. Right. And I don't even type. I just speak into it, and instantly the information that I seeked, I didn't go look it up in the fucking Britannica. I didn't go on my computer and log in and see.
Well, Britannica's trash.
Okay, you're right, because it's English. Yeah, I know, but we're done shitting on other countries right now.
I'm never done.
I have the world's knowledge in my pocket, and I can get information back faster than ever. And we don't utilize it. What are you talking about? Where is it coming from? Well, so yeah, they took a bunch of small pieces and they put them all together.
But the thing is, that's a new take on something old. And what I'm saying is, I guess the question I'm asking is, where is the blossoming, or why are we not seeing new takes on new things blossoming in our culture?
So you're the guy. And let's say we do get the self-driving electric cars 100% down. You'd be like, that's just a car. Or if we get flying cars, so roads aren't there.
Now that would just be something new.
That's just a car.
No, that would be something new.
Dude, this is a wild take. I do agree with you that our creative juices are dwindling. Mm-hmm. And we have a lot of repackaging in the market. But I don't think you're giving enough credit to what we've done in such a short period of time in human history.
We have, right. No, don't get me wrong. We've done a lot with the technologies that were bestowed upon us, and done a whole lot with it. But the thing is, I guess that's the reason that I would argue that we are living in somewhat of a dark age, is that there really isn't a whole lot of new things coming out. It's just newer, more efficient takes on the old, and just further development of these technologies that were bestowed upon us like 40, 50 years ago. it's we're not living in an age of innovation and creativity in the West, unfortunately.
What are you talking about, though? Yes, we are. It's just not being implemented. Dude, we've revolutionized farming. We know that we could feed this whole country and do it economically and environmentally, and they're choosing not to do it. We could do that through aeroponics, aquaponics, all of these different things that we know work on mass scale that we could do. And they're like, oh, what about the Midwestern state? Dude, it takes small amounts of water. We know that when we go and we have orchards where we're just pounding thousands of gallons on these trees, we know we have devices where we could do it on a half gallon per tree. We have little devices that will recycle the water out of the soil and put it back in, so it optimizes everything. It's just not being implemented. They have made this stuff.
Well, the reason I would argue to you that it's not being implemented, so I guess you could go a few different routes.
These are revolutionary things, though.
So the reason that I would argue to you that those technologies are not being implemented, and we're sticking to what we know, we're playing the game cautiously, is because we're living in a culture and in a time, as much as people don't want to admit it, where they're hostile to new ideas. And that's the reason that things like that are, things like aquaponics and hydroponics, they're met with a lot of hostility. And I think the reason for that is we're not living in an intellectual climate that's very accepting of new ideas. And by accepting, I guess what I mean is where they're able to receive new ideas and consider them.
We also, I know this sounds conspiracy theory, but so many different industries are dependent on us not having an abundance of actual real food.
Right.
And I mean multiple industries. Like our economy is tied into us not having an abundance of actual real food. We pay farmers to destroy their fields.
Yeah.
Literally, like we need the prices of tomatoes to stay at this price. So you three farmers, we're going to pay you to just fuck your fields up.
Yeah,
just destroy them.
Yeah, we're just going to pay you to not grow it.
And then that way everyone has to buy tomatoes at this higher price, right? Just an example. But we know that we have the technology for that. There should not be a food scarcity in a country with an abundance of food. Now, we have a lot of fake food, and we still have food scarcity. What is it? 1 out of 7 people are considered food scarce in America.
Yep.
And I would say we're probably the most abundant country in the world. I don't know if anyone wants to disagree with me on that. I will challenge it.
I'm sure that somebody will fact check you
I'm sure they'll be like, well... Technically, there's some little Norwegian shithole where they do everything better because they all believe in the exact same thing and they're 99.8% white. It's the only country I can point to, though, is that little tiny country that's the size of high school, that if there was a car accident, half the population dies. So, yeah, no. But in America, I think we've had a lot, dude. I get what you're saying, and I don't even disagree with you. But I think I'm going to think on that.
Okay.
I'm going to think on that. We're going to come back on that one because I don't disagree with you. But at face value, when you hear it, I want to disagree. And then you start thinking about it and you're not wrong.
Well, and this is the thing. Like, just as an example, look at our architecture. Go look at the very few that exist, like a department store that was built even in a rural area, like in 1910, and compare that department store building to like a Walmart building today, or to like a strip plaza today. I mean, aesthetically, the building that was built like in 1910, it's beautiful. It looks like a cathedral to retail. Mm-hmm. It's equivalent today. It looks like a giant box.
Well, dude, look at malls. They didn't last long, huh?
Right. But
malls were what, the mid-'60s? Early 60s?
Yeah, like early to mid-'60s. And then
I would say they're pretty...
They started falling apart like a couple decades ago, I'd say.
Like maybe the early 2000s?
Yeah.
What do malls last? Like 50 years, 40 years?
Yeah.
50 years? And I would say they're pretty... I know they're still around, but Jesus. I mean, who goes shopping anymore out in the thing? We revolutionized a lot of infrastructure. Delivery systems.
Yeah. But you see, even then again, in my mind, a lot of that stuff, these are all improvements. These are the rolling out.
They are improvements because
they're improvements or the rolling out of efficiency. They're not necessarily the rolling out of something that's new. And the thing is, that is a sign that we're in a dark age to me. And also too, look at the intellectual climate that's in the West. People are all doom and gloom and bitter. And so kind of circling back, we are approaching the end, kind of circling back to what I was saying at the very beginning. I think that in America and in the West at large, we have worked over the past 80 years or so to really root religion out of the West, and in America to root religion out of the American experience, to ban prayer from schools, to this whole bullshit notion
just
of
some moral decay.
Separation of church and state, and that's where I think that's where it all begins. And I think what happens is when you make atheism the religion of the state, you run into the same problem that the Soviet Union ran into, which is that nobody has any motivation to try to improve the future, and no one's optimistic. And if people are not optimistic, if people are if people don't have a positive view of the future, that this whole thing is going somewhere, if people just think that they're a meat sack and that they're just going to die and become nothing, then intellectually, what reason do they have to be concerned about the future? What reason do they have to innovate? What reason do they have to create? Why would they not just pursue pleasure here and now?
You're right. It's that old saying. You can tell the health of a nation or a country by when old men plant trees. When they plant trees for shade they know they'll never sit in, or something like that. I know I'm butchering it. Basically, they're planting these trees knowing they'll never sit in the shade of them.
Right.
That's where you can kind of judge the health of a country.
Well, in America, I don't think there are a whole lot of old people planting trees or really that are concerned about anyone else's future. Mm-hmm. I think there are a lot of old people, and I'm talking to you boomers. I think there are a lot of old people. I think they just sit at home.
They don't even like trees.
Yeah, they hate trees. They just sit at home. They eat their gummies, and they just veg out watching Fox News.
It's pretty true, dude.
Or something.
Well, fuck, man.
And,
Wow.
and the reason I picked on Fox News is the average Fox News channel viewer is 80 years old or something.
Stop it.
No. That's not a dig at boomers or anything. In fact, if you're 80 years old, you're probably older than you're probably not a boomer. But the average Fox News viewer, it's like one of the oldest demographics in television.
Dude, it's just because I don't know, man. It's wild out there. Well, we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
I know next podcast I want to allude into one topic I do want to talk about.
Okay.
You said about pop culture. Mm-hmm. So I'm real big on, I do a lot of pop culture because I have two older brothers. I was born in the early 90s and they were born in the late 70s. So they got to go through the 80s, which I think was an interesting time period for I know you said there wasn't a lot of innovation, but when it came to music and shows and all that kind of stuff and cartoons and toys and all that stuff.
Way better than what's out there now.
I think the 80s was
even way better than the 90s,
time, right? On how people, that media that they consumed, if you will. Well, all the things I grew up and loved had just been utterly destroyed. They you're right. They are fucking lazy. Never mind. I agree with you 100%. They took all that stuff I loved, took those characters and made them suck now.
Yeah.
And I want to talk about, I have 900 examples and I want to talk about them. And we need to get someone, my brother.
Let's bring him on next week.
We'll bring my brother.
All right. And we're going to clip a lot next week.
let's do that 2 podcasts from now because I
Okay.
think we have
All right, like the week after next?
Sebi coming next.
All right. Yeah, let's do it.
All right, good
right.
podcast, man. I love it.
It was a lot of fun.
All right, guys. Love you guys.
Happy
Have a good
4th.
one. Happy 4th of July.